Okay, let's get to chatting about the business end of the football seasons across many European leagues. And we're starting to get a clearer picture of who will finish the season with the trophy and who will miss out. We're going to start with Liverpool because they look as though they're heading towards that second Premier League title. But that will be the only trophy they will win this season. You know, you go back a month or so ago, we were talking about a potential quadruple. But that has now shortened, as I say, to just the one title. But still, it's an impressive title to win because, as I've mentioned, to just win your second goes to show how tough it has been for Liverpool in the Premier League era. Last month, well, it was one heck of a disappointment, as they said. They crashed out of the Champions League. They lost that League Cup final, as we already mentioned, to Newcastle, all within a few days of each other. And they lost their last Premier League game as well at the time of this recording. Just their second in the division, last time out to Fulham. It feels as though they're stuttering currently a little bit. Although we fully expect that they're going to go on to win their title, they're not quite looking at their convincing best, Edward. And I sort of wonder if you're thinking, hello, are they opening the door for us?
Oh, I've you know, when you get false hope and you think, yes, maybe this is our chance, and then the hope fades away. I've stopped thinking that any doors or windows are even slightly ajar. But no, you're right. Liverpool fans probably don't know what to think at the moment because they will very, very easily wrap up this title. But on the other hand, as you said, you know, they've said goodbye to 3 trophies as well. I do wonder whether it's fatigue, if it's a little bit of complacency. Just in that last Premier League match, as you mentioned, Virgil van Dijk, I thought, was pretty error-prone. And you don't really see that from Van Dijk that much. And I wonder if complacency has set in a little bit, and that's what happened when they lost that final against Newcastle as well. Yeah, as an Arsenal fan, I just wish that this had happened a couple of months ago.
Yes. Yeah, it's the wrong time, isn't it, for them to be going through this bad run of form because they still have a healthy lead over you. And it's unlikely, I think most of us would agree, that you're going to catch them. But it just feels a bit funny that they're just not at peak Liverpool at this present moment in time. That being said, of course, one of the biggest teams to not be at their peak is Manchester City, who could miss out on Champions League football altogether. Yeah. And in the week that we're speaking, it was announced that Kevin De Bruyne will be leaving the club after 10 years. I think, let's first of all, should we hear from Pep Guardiola and what he said on that announcement of Kevin De Bruyne leaving in the summer?
Sad day. A happy day for the fact that the pleasure personally that we live, or I live this time with him. What he gave us, all of us, his humanity, and of course, don't necessarily tell his influence in our success in the last decade. That will be impossible to imagine, without him. And a sad day because, of course, it's part of us, he's leaving. So when Vincent left, or Sergio left, or David Silva left, and these players have been contribution, and I will say more names, so these example 3. Of course, it's a time that, it's a sad day. So, but still we have 10 games and hopefully 11 and 6 games at home that we can enjoy with our fans, and he will get, I'm pretty sure, the love and the recognition that all of us, fans of course, that he deserves.
So he's an icon, really, to be leaving Manchester City. He's won 16 trophies in his time at the club, 6 Premier League titles and a Champions League as well. And just from a sort of biased perspective, as someone who watches the Premier League week in, week out, to lose a player of his status? Why would I say status? To lose a player of his status would be just quite a shame, really, for the Premier League, because it is widely expected that he's going to be leaving the Premier League. But he will go down, Todd, as a great of this division.
I totally understood when you said status. That sounded perfect in my ears.
I think it's your influence, Todd.
I did. I will say this. I think this is a question that I'd throw right back at you is this the beginning of the end? Man City has been atop for so long, much to Edward's chagrin, but you talk about Kyle Walker leaving, you talk about De Bruyne leaving. Are people starting to exit and because they see the signs of, oh, I don't want to be around for a rebuild? And for Man City, I mean, obviously anything out of the top 4 is a rebuild. So I don't throw it over you, Edward. I mean, as an Arsenal fan, you probably love to see Man City at the bottom of the table and missing out. But is this the beginning of the end for the Blue?
Well, I think as Natalie said, first of all, we just have to appreciate how good De Bruyne has been.
Yeah.
I think because if you take into account this past season where he's been really a shadow of himself, it's easy to forget just what an impact he's left on the league. 118 Premier League assists. He stands second only to Ryan Giggs in the all-time assist chart. 70 goals in 280 Premier League appearances. Really good for a midfielder. It's an impressive goals per match ratio of 0.25. And you mentioned, Natalie, how instrumental he was in all those trophy wins. His win percentage of 70.08% stands as the highest amongst Premier League midfield legends. That's surpassing the likes of Scholes, Lampard, and Gerrard. I do think, yes. I mean, obviously, every kind of generation of club reaches that point where it's time to move the players on. Kyle Walker getting on in age. He, of course, went to AC Milan. He's injured himself again now, actually, which goes to show just kind of how fragile these players are in the latter stages of their career. I mean, De Bruyne, look, was on £400,000 a week. So City couldn't afford to keep him on forever. And he's scored 4 goals and 7 assists in all comps this season. It's not really worth the money keeping him on. And that's just business, I guess.
But can I say, though, that the rumors swirling around, and first of all, he's such a stabilizing force. I mean, I just think when he's out there, they're a different team as a stabilizer, as a floor general, as we would say. But the rumors on this side of the pond, MLS could be in his future. And I know there's some deep pockets, especially down in the folks that wear the pink in Miami. They would love to bring him on because even though, to Edward's point, as they get older in their career, they do get a little more fragile, that stuff. He will put bums in seats in North America.
The problem with Inter Miami, they've already got the maximum of their 3 designated players outside of the league's wage cap. So that's Messi, Sergio Busquets, and Jordi Alba. Yeah, so they're going to have to let one go. It'd be great to see De Bruyne linking up with Messi, but I've also heard that perhaps Angel Di Maria will be coming to Miami as well. So they're going to have to work out who they're going to prioritize, I guess.
Yeah, deep pockets, that's what they've got to have regardless,
to
pay for that for certain. But he will be a massive miss, of course he will, for Manchester City. And I think this is a massive summer ahead for them. You know, you've already mentioned some of the outgoings. There's probably going to be some more. There's a lot of players that haven't really stepped up this season. Bernardo Silva, Ilkay Gundogan, who I know was a late sort of summer transfer, but you wonder if they're the kind of players that also will be moved on. And look, if anyone can make it work and bring in enough players that they need to sort of get them back to being peak City, then it is Pep Guardiola, I'm sure. But I wonder if they'll have a statue. They're bound to have a statue of Kevin De Bruyne, aren't they? Outside the Etihad?
I'm sure they will. I mean, Man City are searching for legends, aren't they? So
well, they've already got one of Aguero.
They've got one of
Kompany,
Aguero. Yeah,
Silva.
I'm surprised there's not one of Paul Dickov, but yes.
Give it time.
But no, next season, Rodri will be back. And he's been such a miss for them. He's an additional centre-back. He links the defence and the midfield and the attack. And you just look at some of the replacements that have been suggested for De Bruyne. Florian Wirtz from Leverkusen, Xavi Simon from RB Leipzig, Morgan Rogers, of course, he's doing fantastically at Villa at the moment. He actually was at City really early on in his career before they let him go. And then Morgan Gibbs-White, whoever they get, these are like early 20s, 22, 23-year-olds. So that person can really start this new generation for Man City and, you know, could feasibly be there for 7, 8, 10 years.
Yeah, we will see what happens with that. What we should quickly mention is that the relegation picture is becoming ever so clearer now. Southampton are relegated. That happened in the last match week of the Premier League following their defeat to Tottenham. They've become the earliest a side has gone down from the top flight or the Premier League after 31 games. And it looks more and more likely that Leicester and Ipswich are going to join them as well. Ipswich were on that cusp of a victory over Wolves and then threw it away at home last time out, which still would have meant they had a big gap to make up to Wolves. But losing that one like they did so late on means it's looking ever so increasingly likely that they're going to be going down, which means all 3 teams that came straight back up, Todd, going straight back down again.
Yeah, that's sad. And I hate to see it, especially with Leicester, with such a rich history, but their scoring absence has been just glaring. What is it, 8 straight? And they cannot dig themselves out of a hole. But to your point, it's sad to see them go up and down. I've talked with a couple people in the league, in the Premier League, and they said, you know, to really make the money, you have to stay up for more than a year. It's great to be promoted, but to get that good TV money, the extra cash, you need to stay up for 2 years. And so, in talking with my good friend, chairman of Burnley, who go Clarets, they look to be in a position that they're going to get the promotion again. He said, so it's great to get promoted. We got to stay up for more than 1 year. We can't do back and forth.
Yeah, I'm a bit bummed about Southampton because their relegations cost Arsenal about £1 million because part of the contract that was signed between themselves for Aaron Ramsdale, correct? Yeah. If he'd stayed up, then Arsenal would have got a further £1 million. But
that's pocket change in Arsenal. Pocket change.
Ramsdale, 23 top flight games, 54 goals conceded. I mean, it's not on him, but he's going to be relegated for a third time, which is not very nice. I'm a bit sad about Ipswich, to be honest, because they had their moments, didn't they? They led against, I think, Fulham, City, Villa, Man United at times, and they seem to lose too many games from winning positions.
Yeah, that's been very costly for them. And actually, even Portman Road, which I thought would be a bit of a fortress, has not been a fortress for them at all. So, yeah, it would have been nice to have seen at least one of them stay up, just to sort of buck the recent trend. But as we say, it looks like all three are going straight back down. So, come on now, we should get to the fact why you're wearing that Arsenal shirt. And the fact,
elephant in the room. Here we go.
We're recording this in between the two legs of the Champions League quarter-final. And Arsenal, wow, what a first leg, beating Real Madrid 3-0 at the Emirates. It's done and dusted, no? You're safely through to the semis, aren't you?
It would be done and dusted if it were any other side apart from Real Madrid. Because, I mean, how do you even select the variety of comebacks that they've shown over the past few years? I was looking at some of their comebacks recently. I mean, even when Ancelotti was in charge, they came back from 2-1 down at the Etihad in the final 10 minutes last season, winning the game 3-2. That one against Bayern at the Bernabeu, I think Ancelotti's team came from 1-0 down to 2-1 up and win that 4-3 in aggregate in just 2 minutes. And then what they called the Champions League de las Remontadas, which is the Champions League of comebacks, that triumph against PSG in the round of 16. And in just 15 minutes, they turned around a 2-0 deficit and the aggregate score became 3-2. And then against Man City in the semis, they won. They went from 5-3 down to 6-5 on aggregate with Karim Benzema, of course, leading the way. I was very surprised that Arsenal won that first leg. I think if you look at it man to man, Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., Camavinga, Alaba. There are only probably two players, if you're doing one of those combined Real Arsenal 11s that the media likes to do, that you would take from Arsenal, Saka and Saliba. And to a man, Real were better, but Arsenal just as a team just functioned so much better. And as you mentioned, 2 worldly free kicks. But Arsenal were fully deserving of that victory. And I do think that Real just capitulated. And you could see it on the faces of Bellingham and Mbappe, that they didn't know what to do.
Yeah, it was a brilliant first leg win. And, you know, you mentioned Mbappe. He leaves France, where he's been so successful with PSG, but never winning the coveted Champions League. Goes to Real Madrid, as we know, the most successful team when it comes to European Cup history. And he could be bowing out at the quarter-final stage and PSG is still in it. So you must be thinking, what did I do wrong there? Maybe it's just not meant for him. Who knows? But I think it was a tremendous victory. And Declan Rice, look at those 2 free kicks, were just sensational.
World class.
To do it once, but then to do it twice, incredible. And Mbappe, this is coming up against Jakub Kiwior, you know, and Real Madrid coming up against Mikel Merino, who's probably our 5th choice centre forward. It is staggering what Arsenal managed to do. And as I said, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but there's something about Champions League nights, and whatever happens from here on, and this is a night that'll live in the memory for many years to come.
Absolutely. And after Arsenal's win, by the way, in that first leg of the Champions League quarter-final, England now will be guaranteed 5 spots in Europe's elite competition for next season. The extra spot was earned due to the coefficient ranking of the Premier League and how those sides have fared in Europe across all 3 European competitions. It's actually possible that 7 English teams could play in the Champions League next season. If Aston Villa, for example, were to win the Champions League this time around and not qualify through the league, but also the fact you've got Manchester United or Tottenham in the Europa League. If they win that, one of those, they'll go through to the Champions League for next season. So we could have 7 Premier League teams, which does seem very greedy, but we'll take it. Just to wrap up what's happening elsewhere in other domestic leagues, here is how it's shaping up in the Bundesliga in Germany. It's like a 2-horse race, really, for the title. It's Bayern Munich that lead the way against Bayer Leverkusen as at the time of recording, which could mean that Harry Kane could finally win his first trophy. I know. He leads the way when it comes to the goal-scoring charts, and I think he's had 30 goal contributions this season, but finally could get his hands on some silverware if Bayern go on to win that trophy. In Spain, well, it's Real Madrid, Barcelona and Atletico that are all charging for that La Liga crown. 7 points separate Barcelona from top to Atletico in third. And I mentioned PSG. Well, they've already secured the title in France with 6 games to spare, and they are unbeaten so far as well. It's their 4th consecutive title and 11th in the last 13 seasons. And quite incredibly, when you consider the dominant force that they are domestically, they could go unbeaten, as I say, for the rest of this season at home or in the French league, which kind of makes me think, I would have thought they'd done that before. I don't know why, just because they're so dominant in France.
Yeah, and the fact that when they had Messi and Mbappe and Neymar, they weren't able to.
Yeah, which would be some feat then if they can do it this time around. But it does lead to the question about how competitive is the French league, and it sort of doesn't feel like it is at all when you're talking about a 4th consecutive title. I mean, it's so difficult to win 4 in the Premier League, for example, in a row, but for them to have done it and to perhaps win, as I've said, to win 11 in 13. Oh, geez, that's not bad at all.
What do you think it is, though? Do you think it's, I know all roads lead to Paris, but do you think it's just what they've set up and the culture they've set up there, or is it just savvy work by the general manager getting the right players? Because to Edward's point, I mean, look at the talent that's been there, and they were unable to get titles, and now they leave, and it's like, oh, this isn't so hard after all.
I think a lot of it does come down to investment, and I do think, obviously, they've won the domestic titles before with all those key...
And they have a little bit of money.
They have a little bit of money. And actually, in France in general, their TV broadcasting deal, for example, is terrible in comparison to the Premier League. So I don't think many clubs make a lot of money in France, but because they have the Qatar Sports Investment, they just have so much money behind them. So it's very easy for them to invest wisely, as they're doing this season, because they kind of got rid of their superstar names, although they still have some very well-known individuals there. But it feels as though they've gone from being a team made up of individuals to a team made up of a team, if you like.
No, and it's funny when you mention that, because I've got in my notes here when we talk about Manchester City and what's led to their downfall or the reason why they're not, doing as well as they used to. And I just put on a basic level, dominance at the peak of world football is unrealistic. It's unsustainable. The players lose interest a little bit. You just can't stay at that level forever. But PSG have managed to do that.
Okay, well, we are on the watch, of course, for all the European leagues to see what will happen.